Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Sean Decker, and I'd like you to hear something. You're hearing Take It Upon Yourself by Blue Noise, featuring my friend Maya Chun on, well, everything. I often find myself asking Maya late-night mixing questions, so I was really excited to get a chance to talk with her for the podcast.
So I was born on Long Island, New York, in a family of two sisters, and then later on one more sister after me. And at the time, being the only quote-unquote boy in the family, that was like a weird pressure thing because my two older sisters were really good at school and talented and athletic, and I sort of just floundered at everything I did except for, I knew how to use a computer when I was 5 years old or something, something silly like that. And, when people ask me what my family is like, I usually just say the word confused because I don't think any of us really have any idea what we're doing, even though it might seem like we do on the outside, but, I think everyone in my family just sort of is constantly winging every interaction they have with any person ever. And after you spend enough time around them, it shows. And it's hard to, build a foundation of how to be a person on that a little bit. And I definitely had to figure that out on my own very quickly after I left home.
Yeah. I was reading something by Neil Gaiman once, and he says that there's an assumption that when you're an adult, you have all these things figured out, but adults are just like children. Like, we don't know what we're doing. And, we do put ourselves in these roles, like being parental figures or whatever. And yeah, we are just winging it a lot of the times. And,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes depending on the situation, later on you can look at that under a different lens and be like, okay, maybe my parents were trying their best, or, sometimes there's other cases where obviously that wasn't the case. But, so how did you get along with your sisters when you were growing up?
My older sister is kind of just this, you can never be mad at her for anything ever because she's just the nicest person in the world. And, she's super smart and just, goes out of her way to do nice things for people. And, she's great. But, I would come into, high school, every grade of, middle and high school, and my teachers would be like, oh, you're Katie's brother. And then halfway through the year, they'd be like, you're Katie's brother? But my second oldest sister, back when she was still in high school, we butted heads a lot. And I specifically remember one funny moment of me finding just a picture of the three of us, and I scratched her out of it, and my mom got mad at me or whatever. But we're all fine now, we're just being kids and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll never, but the more complicated relationship is us and our parents, I'd say. And it's not that we have a bad relationship, it's just difficult to handle sometimes, I guess.
Yeah. Were your parents very young when they had all of you?
Not really. must have been, they were 29 when they had my oldest sister.
Oh, okay,
And
so
then 30 for my second oldest, and then 35 when they had me.
yeah. Yeah, my mom was very young when she had me, so I think I have to look at that, whenever I think about certain things that happened in my life. Um,
Hmm.
so, um, did were your parents into music very much, or artwork, or anything creative like that?
Yeah, my mom wanted to be an opera singer,
Oh, wow.
and had actually briefly gone into college for vocal performance after she initially did her undergrad, and then eventually moved to New York with my dad. And then kids happened, and et cetera, et cetera. But music has always been an extremely important part of her life, and she definitely pushed all of us to. My two older sisters played violin, and I was like, I don't want to play violin. I'm going to play cello. Ha, screw you guys. So we all played piano too, to some extent, just like being young and learning piano, and because that was my mom's instrument, other than singing.
Uh-huh.
So she was just always constantly exposing us to classical music, because that's what she loves.
Awesome. So, did you have a piano around the house, and did you take
Yeah,
lessons?
yeah, yeah. We had a piano at my house. This nice Yamaha grand piano. It was just like an absolutely beautiful instrument that I still love playing when I go home, even though I can't play piano. I just didn't absorb anything.
Yeah.
I took lessons for like maybe 2 years, and then cello took over, I guess, and I just didn't have the attention span to do both.
Okay. And how far did you take cello? How?
I played it until I graduated high school.
Oh, yeah. So you
So
can still play?
yeah, I can still play. I mean, it's been a while since I regularly played, but at this point, I retained a good amount of technique.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did listening to like classical music and being exposed to that kind of stuff around the house lead to you listening to heavier music? Just
I mean, I feel like especially with some areas of, especially metal, there's such a very literal connection between metal and classical music, whether it's literally just bullshit like Ingve Malmsteen, which I love that shit when I was in middle school, or power metal, or just even fucking just I loved all the shred guitar gods, when I was in seventh grade, and most of them would have one track where they just play some Beethoven sonata, or Bach fugue or some silly thing like that. That was at the very least it was a way have my parents allow me to listen to metal.
yeah, that's the first name that
Yeah.
came into my head when you said the when you were drawing a parallel between classical and metal was Ingve, because I definitely,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely remember seeing videos at some points where he would sit in with like an opera or something, and it was very over the top, but pretty cool, if I'm being honest. Um, so, so when did you
Yeah,
start?
Deal Work wasn't such a rampant piece of shit, but
Oh, I don't know much about him as a
oh
person.
god, there's tons of stories online about just nonsense he's told over the years, but I won't get too much into that now.
Oh, 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 that's disappointing. How?
I mean, I can if you want. But
This is about you. This is about you,
yeah,
not
yeah.
about that. But when did you start playing guitar then?
Sixth grade.
Sixth
We
grade?
always had this classical guitar around because my mom could play it, but it wasn't her main thing.
Mm-hmm.
The I was right around when Guitar Hero 2 happened for me.
Oh, yeah.
That was a very defining moment of my life.
Okay.
Um, I wanted to learn how to play Heart Shaped Box by Nirvana and Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
And I downloaded Tower Tab and went on Ultimate Guitar and learned how to play these songs and begged my parents to get any garbage electric guitar so I could hear what I'm playing with distortion.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And what was your
and
first electric then?
It was what was known as a Fender Starcaster, which is essentially just a Squire Strat. It was like Costco model or something. I don't know. It came with this like garbage ass 10-watt amp with this button switch overdrive on it.
Oh yeah.
I learned how to play a lot of things on that setup, but I mean, I actually still have that guitar that I just modded the shit out of and still record and play with these days. But
Oh, that's awesome.
definitely got.
I I kind of wish I still had my first guitar, but it got stolen in like a warehouse robbery.
Cheers. Oh.
Yeah, it was just a BC Rich Warlock, you know. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Sick.
yeah, right. Um, so it sounds like you just went at it all yourself, like as far as guitar goes, just getting online and learning to play things by ear or tabs. Um, but how long was it until you started trying to be in bands or form bands?
Um, it took a while just because I didn't really know anyone that wanted to do that kind of thing. There was really no one in my school who had any interest in playing music until a little later, and it's a pretty small school because our school district had been divided into a couple of different districts in the '80s, and our district was the smallest one by far. And so there were 90 people in my grade. It was a public school, but it was just a tiny little place.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so no one really cared about music. At least that was immediately my age until a little later on. But my first band experience, I guess, was with my friend Max in ninth grade. It was a band called Prevenge. And we both liked prog metal. We both liked death metal. And so we just wanted to make this, while you're young and you're learning about prog metal, you want to write songs that are very technical but don't end up sounding any good at all.
Yeah.
And if I were to find any first recordings we made, they'd be absolute fucking garbage, trash, idiot, moron stuff. We wrote a song that had a time signature of what was it? It was 4.5 over 6.
Okay.
Pure gimmick for the sake of just having that on the paper. But,
Yeah.
But, but he played drums and I played guitar and we wrote songs together.
Well, I mean,
That was
yeah, you had the desire. That's that's the start. And then yeah, what bands were you really influenced by at that time? Like Yes, like old stuff like Yes and Genesis, old Genesis, or different stuff.
More modern kind of stuff, especially Max was definitely more of a death metal kind of guy.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I was listening to a lot of Cynic back then. I was listening to a lot of Atheists, listening to a lot of Dream Theater because I'm a fucking dork idiot. Listened to a lot of Suffocation, Between the Buried and Me. Yeah, and he definitely, he listened to all that too, but also exposed me to stuff like Beneath the Massacre and See You Next Tuesday and a lot more of the more modern, vaguely more core tech stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always super interested in people's influences as far as certain things go, and it's wild, how, especially when it comes to like prog stuff. I you know my knowledge of what's newer is so limited, and I also think it's funny that the bands that are considered largely influential as far as that stuff goes, like from way back in the day, became like pop bands. So I actually
Oh
didn't.
yeah, like Emerson, Lake and Palmer just becoming full on, just like pop musicians, like electric light orchestra, like
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
old stuff.
yeah. It's wild. Like I mean, just when you go, I didn't I didn't hear Genesis first as like, I've of course heard I can't dance or whatever, and then when you go
Yeah.
back and listen to the other stuff, like this is
Hmm.
why people say Phil Collins is a great drummer because he actually is, but
Yeah.
um how did that lead to you um getting into like what we would call like screamo or like chaotic hardcore.
Um. So in Long Island, there's this band called Cryptodira. And they're getting pretty big these days. They're touring with bands like Rolo Tomasi and stuff like that. But back then they were just plucky group of 20-somethings, Love Converge and Between the Buried and Me and Touche Amore. Um, I would go to a lot of their early shows. Um, they were great guys, or continue to be great guys. They're definitely still out there and doing it and being great. Um, they definitely, whether they know it or not, kind of fostered me in a real way. Like getting to see very talented performers, very energetic, very passionate. Like we weren't just like kind of like four statues like standing on stage like sweep picking or whatever. Like they had energy, they had presence, and the music was like technical, but that wasn't the entire point. Like there was emotion, there was anger, and like all of a sudden I was like, oh wait a minute, the music I make is like sterile bullshit that doesn't really mean anything to anyone, including myself. Like it was just like fine. Like I don't think a teenager necessarily has to like attach some like grand emotional journey to anything that they make. Like I don't expect any teen to like have an incredibly uh, you know mind blowing like view of what's going on in their life, and maybe some do. And I definitely have seen like teens who can create some really thought provoking art, but that was definitely not me.
Yeah.
And watching Cryptodira and going to their band practices and seeing them grow as seeing them grow as musicians, and it made me want to like play in a band, one, and then two, like scream in a band. Really, like that
Yeah.
was really my first experience with like, oh man, doing vocals like in a live setting is like fucking cool. Like I want to do that too. Like,
Yeah.
um, and then like junior year of high school, quite frankly, I just got very sad and like started listening to Touche Amore and Piano's Become the Peace as a teenager in 2012 does. Um, Googled Screamo once, read the Wikipedia page.
What was Google saying about screamo in 2012? I wonder.
I mean, I think I'm pretty sure the first artist that's mentioned on that Wikipedia page is Heroin, and has
Okay.
been for a long time.
Okay.
And so I
Fair.
listened to that, and I'm like, okay, this is cool, but like, not really what I'm looking for. Like, I'd listened to like Fugazi before, and like Minor Threat. I'm like, oh, this kind of sounds like them, and even though it didn't really sound like them. But at that point, I was just like, yeah, I don't really feel like going down the rest of this. But a little later on, I probably like downloaded like Document 8 or like Dance Tonight, Revolution Tomorrow or something. I don't really remember the exact timeline of how that happened, but
Yeah.
somewhere down the line, the idea of real screamo popped into my head. And then 2013 happened, and Nair happened, and exactly. I think
Yeah.
you saw firsthand what happened to me after that.
Say what?
I think you saw firsthand what happened to me after that.
Oh, sure, sure. I mean, a lot of us were there. What I was gonna say before, though, is it's interesting you were saying, that you don't think that a teenager has to have a profound attachment to the music that they're playing, and I completely understand that and agree with it. And I think in most cases that's true, but also isn't isn't all of this is part of getting there, though, right? So
Oh, really?
in a way, you always have to have that thing where maybe you're just like aping another band that you really like, or or just like playing songs that don't necessarily have some kind of worldview that you can share, but you just it's part of your process to getting to that point where you might be able to do stuff like that if that's your intention.
Oh, absolutely. And my early time, learning how to use a DAW, learning how to record, it was definitely just me hey, I like this song. I'm gonna try and re-engineer it. Just just literal, just calisthenics, just how to create a tone, how to mix drums,
Yeah.
and I did that years before I really felt comfortable with how I made music.
And were you getting into all that before your bands were playing shows?
Yeah, I didn't really ever play a real show until I want to say maybe 2012, maybe 2011. But I've been making stuff since 2008 at that point.
Okay. And was that Youth Novel at that point, or was that a band that predates Youth Novel?
No, that was Monster Bad.
Oh,
And
okay.
Monster Bad was me, and at that point it was me and my friend Chris, who I had known since sixth grade, I think maybe.
Okay.
And definitely was more of the how did I put this before? I think I said that Chris was the Keith Shoto to my what the fuck? How am I forgetting this guy's name? The other Fugazi guy.
Oh,
It was a straight edge man.
Ian Mackay?
Yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
how I forgot his fucking name.
Oh.
I had joked before that Chris was the geek that showed it to my Ian McCarthy. Or was it the other way around? I don't remember. But, like, definitely two parts of the whole. But, like, Chris was definitely, like, more into, like, punk music. And I was more into, like, metal music. And then we came together and made a folk rock band.
Okay.
Yes. But it was a lot of fun. Like, that was, like, really when I learned how to play drums in a real way. And that was, like, my first, like, real, like, full-length album recording process with, like, drum miking and, like, mixing with another person. And, like, and we started, like, finding shows and, like, dealing with promoters and stuff. And we were both, like, 15, 16 maybe. And, groping our way around this wacky thing with a bunch of bars and a bunch of grown-ass men who barely know what they're doing either.
Yeah. What was your first show like?
My first show was at this place called the Rose Theater, and I don't think it was meant to be a live music venue at all. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be either like a small drama club or maybe a like comedy club or like a dance theater or something. In any case, like it was this tiny little spot. It's booked by this one guy. I forget his name, but he used to book a lot of shows in Long Island. And we had prepared like an hour's worth of music. Because we just, we're like kids. We had no idea what we're doing. We get to like our fourth song, and the guy's like, "Yeah, that's it. That's all the time you got," or maybe like the fifth song. But like the drums that I had at the time, like it got off Craigslist for like maybe $80. They were a bunch of pieces of crap, like hardware was falling apart. My snare stand like kept collapsing throughout the set, and one of the other guys in one of the other bands had to keep propping it up for me.
Oh.
And yeah, it was a mess. And I mean, it was. I think we all definitely look on that with like. We definitely all like laugh when we think about the Rose Theater, just because of all the. I think actually, what was that one band? They got kind of big now. I think they're called like Gatherers or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they played that show.
Oh, wow.
And like that, they had put out like their second EP or something at that point. Yeah, Gatherers played that. And who else? I think like this one pop punk band, No Good News. That was just like this Long Island pop punk band. I think the vocalist or guitarist or something, like someone has, Long Island pop punk guys do. That's a good time. Who else played that show? There were like 8 or 9 people on that show.
Oh, really?
Like 8 or 9, like for no real conceivable reason, just because like, people don't know what the fuck they're doing. No one got paid. No one showed up. Like in the middle of nowhere. Like it was in like the theater was in like this this commercial park. Like there were like businesses like there, and like we pull up and we just have no idea where the fuck we are. Load in our garbage gear, stand around.
And basically it was a fest, but just build like a regular show.
Yeah. Now that I look back on it, it really wasn't that out of the ordinary.
No, that happened often, huh?
Yeah. Sound guy shows up and then leaves immediately after the band starts playing.
Yeah, it just sets the levels for one band, and well, that ought to do it. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Of course, looking back on it now, you have like that appreciation for it as humor, but at the time, what did it feel like to just be, on a stage, as it were, or whatever, just playing your music for people?
I mean, it was cool. Like, I I'd done performance before, like, in orchestras and stuff, and I was
Right.
used to playing in front of a lot of people. So performance had always been sort of like a thrill to me. And I guess we'd also done like kind of open mic shows at like this one local restaurant that like would do like acoustic like coffee shop type sets, but that felt different. Like getting up on a stage, setting up my drums on my own, like loading in gear, like that like even though like we all felt like kind of like, oh, like maybe we got a little disrespected here, maybe like the show like kind of sucks, but like it felt like we were doing a real thing, like just a bunch of kids like driving out like 30 minutes away, like doing the rock and roll thing,
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool. So did so that was still during high school?
Yeah, that was in high school.
And then after high school you moved?
Yeah, I moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan for
Okay.
school, and that's where I met John Riley, the youth novel guys, and the Bonzo guys, and I mean, those two groups intersecting created like 10 more bands just
Yeah.
with that group of members. But
Yeah.
yeah,
How
that's where all.
was it before y'all were playing together? Just kind of like right away, or?
So Youth Novel was already a band before I came to Michigan. They formed in late 20 or mid 2013, I want to say. And then I came to Michigan September 2013, and I saw Youth Novel actually at the first party I ever went to at
Okay.
U of M. Yeah, it was a Youth Novel. What was that band called? Hawkinson? It kind of sounded like Daylight. And then Bravebird played that show too.
Okay.
It was actually a party show, I guess. But yeah, that ended up being like the house that I would live at for like the next 3 years. But I came to that house, there was a party, saw bands, and I'm like, this is really cool, and I want to do this. And I was like, hey, like, I like to record music. I want to record you guys. And they're like, hell yeah, let's do it. And then second half of that year was recording and mixing and stuff. And then the year after that, John Dickinson, who was the vocalist and guitarist at that point, wanted to just like be only a vocalist. They're like, hey, you want to join the band and play guitar? I'm like, hell fucking yeah. That's exactly what I want to do. It's like their shows are just so energetic and like loud, and it was just what I always wanted to do, I guess.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you talked
It was a lot of
about
fun.
recording again. So that was how you got to know them, was by recording them?
Yeah, pretty much. I'd really only known like kind of one and a half of them. I mean, I'd hung out with all of them before, but like not like I didn't know them very well. But I definitely got to know them a lot more during the recording process.
Okay. And you mentioned before that you had been recording for a while, your own projects. How did you initially take those first steps into recording? And into like, what were your first steps into saying? I mean, there's the will to do it, like you want to do it, but what were your first actual like, I need to do these things and then I can start doing this?
Yeah, so if we want to go real far back, the first thing I remember recording, period, was just a guitar take of me playing along to Enter Sandman on this, like, I had this, like, shitty plastic microphone that I plugged into my laptop that had maybe 512 megs of RAM and, like a Intel Celeron piece of shit processor. Plugged it right into, like, the line-in jack on there and, like, recorded into Audacity. And, like, it'd be hilarious to listen to it now, but I really don't want to. My first, like, real recording, I'd gone to this guitar camp, which is a very funny thing to say. But they had a raffle for this Digitech Multi-FX pedal. And I won the raffle. It had come with this CD of Cubase 4 LE. And I was like, oh, this looks like a cool thing that I can use. And I installed it on my computer, took like one look at it, and I'm like, this is too hard. And like forgot about it for like 6 months or something. And later on, I was like, you know what, Audacity kind of maybe isn't very good. Like after maybe a year and a half of using it, I was like, let's try this. And it was tough. Cubase 4 LE is rough. Not only is it not the most friendly interface for a 14-year-old, but it's also extremely buggy and crashed a lot. And my hardware was very bad and janky, and I honestly don't know how I made half the recordings that I did looking back. But like, my school had offered this, what did they even call it? It was like digital music production class that I took in 9th grade.
Okay.
And the description of the class is like, yeah, we'll go through like GarageBand, Logic, Ableton, Pro Tools. I'm like, hell yeah, that sounds tight. But all we did was just use GarageBand for the whole year.
Okay.
Which was like fine because I was in 9th grade and like I just never used GarageBand before. So like even that was like a very valuable experience. And that was when I first like started programming drums. And I think that was the biggest step that I took to like actually make what I would consider at the time real music. Because actually everything I'd composed up until that point was made in Guitar Pro 5. And Guitar Pro 5, just all those crappy MIDI sounds. And, I got very good at writing drums in, like, the numerical pattern that, like, it used. Like, I still remember all the MIDI mappings. Like, 36 is kick drum, 38 snare drum, 42 is closed hi-hat. Like, they're just ingrained in my head. Like, I'll never forget that. But, in 2nd grade, it wasn't a very intuitive writing platform, and the songs I wrote are probably somewhere on the internet still, but I really hope they're not.
That's fair. If you were going to give advice to someone who wanted to start recording their own music right now, where would you tell them to start?
I think it really depends on like where they are as artists and what they want to do. I wanted to make prog metal.
Okay.
And I think I took a very specific path to making prog metal. And I made prog metal. And like at that time, like if you wanted to do that on your own, you had to get your hands on a copy of Superior Drummer 2.
Yeah.
You had to learn how to like properly like use modeling software. Like you had to be able to play very, very like tightly with yourself. You had to be able to make very small and exact edits to like all the tracks that you're recording. And like if I were to tell that to like say a singer-songwriter, like that wouldn't be very useful information to them. Like that's just not what you do. And I mean, the best. I mean, I think the biggest thing that was important for me was just the infinite bounty of vomit that is the internet.
Yeah.
if I wanted to learn something, I threw it in Google and saw it and like looked through forums and shit. And like, if I had a problem with something or like, oh, I'm getting this error message in Cubase. What does that mean? Google that and see what they have to say about it and try and fix it myself. Or, like, I didn't really have anyone to talk to about this stuff, so I had to like, really just like depend on the internet as a resource for it.
Yeah.
And I think it really is the most valuable resource that especially younger people have, because, I think I like to see myself as someone unhealthily in tune with the internet, but I work with teens at my job, and there's something else, man. Like, not only are they just like, they were born in a world where the internet always existed, and like, I'm just old enough to remember a time before the internet, but like those few years apparently just make such a ridiculous difference. Like I feel like all like teens like have this like they're all. I don't want to say they're connected because that's just like kind of like a diminishing way of putting it, but like there definitely does feel like there is this much greater like cloud of knowledge that they all pull from that just like far like outreaches what any like person I went to high school with like was anywhere familiar with.
Yeah.
Cause it's like weird to be on the internet that much when I was like a teenager. Like you spend all your time like on the internet. It's like weird. Like fucking like play Call of Duty or like play football or like I guess Call of Duty counts as the internet, but like Xbox Live feels like a different part of the internet than like going on like forum.
Yeah,
and
sure.
like, but
yeah,
there's just such a greater literacy for technology in the younger generation at the moment that I'm already seeing teens like making incredible stuff like way before I would have been capable of doing anything like that.
Oh, I'm still not capable of it. I just, I don't know. I think in my case, it's a lot of conflicting information, and it's all trial and error. There's such a learning curve to a degree with stuff like that. And there's also the idea that since I've been playing music as long as I have, that I have some technical information that's just like granted to me like inherently that I absolutely do not have, and so I'm still looking, I'm looking at one video that says, scoop, make a bell scoop out of all your guitars and cut off, all this. And then you're having another one that's like, mic the back of your guitar for those low frequencies and, and just these different techniques, and it's
both things that I've done before.
Oh yeah, me too. And to varying degrees of success. And that's another thing you can't quantify is how something will work for one specific thing and then not for the next. It's like, it's just wild.
Yeah, it's so not only is it like completely subjective, but also like the smallest change in the environment that like a recording is taking place in like can change everything. Like the angle of a certain wall, like the material of the instrument, like even like the temperature sometimes can make like a perceivable difference in sound. Like, and like it is so hard to like give advice and like to like consolidate information in a way that applies broadly, but also isn't just like, oh yeah, the mids sound like whoa, and the highs sound like it's just like it's very difficult to disseminate information in a way that isn't just like, hey, come in this room and this is how it works in here. and then train yourself to do that, and then go into another room and immediately just like figure out how it works in there. Like it's just so difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So your newest projects include Blue Noise, Serpent Column, and Cheeseburger Picnic.
Yeah.
This is three. I mean, I feel like they're three very different things.
Hmm.
And I was wondering, as a trans woman, do you feel like when you are putting these very different projects into different spaces on the internet, do you feel like people react in different ways according to where these projects find themselves in these corners of, different heavy types of music?
Now,
Not really?
it's tough to say because, especially with, I don't think it's necessarily communicated that I'm trans through my music in a real way. And the people who know are generally people that I trust with that information, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, pop, kind of like, I don't really care who knows it. But like, it's sort of a thing of, I mean, in a very simple sense, like all those projects are very different from each other in that like the time that they were constructed is just like different. Like Blue Noise, some of those tracks are, almost 6 years old, and Serpent Column is at this point mostly just I provide technical assistance. The Cheeseburger Picnic is just literal nonsense bullshit that I just like vomit out like when I can.
Okay.
But I mean, those things all have exceptionally different audiences, and especially Serpent Column. I don't have my name really specifically attached to it because black metal is a fickle beast, to say the least.
Yeah.
And I think it occupies a niche in black metal where, I mean, first of all, like people often obscure their identities, but also the artists themselves sometimes are less prone to caring about things like that. Like, so I don't want to say that they're not necessarily all Nazis, but they're maybe less prone to be Nazis sometimes. It's just so difficult to say with black metal a lot of times. Because you really don't know who is going to be a white supremacist or not a lot of the time.
Yeah. I should have thought of a different way to ask that. But it's just that sometimes when you are promoting a particular band or whatever, I mean, we're not even promoting, but when you're putting it out there, there's a very like, you take a very public like role like as a person, and so I didn't know if you felt like you addressed these different projects in a different way because of any kinds of reactions, whether they be positive or negative. But
I'm very bad at promoting my own work in a real way. I think I posted the Blue Noise album like 3 times maybe. And like the Cheeseburger Picnic is just like something that I'll post to like certain groups and just like I'd post an EP and be like, LOL, like why did I do this or something like that. Like in a way, like it's deeply comical music to me. Like especially if you were to like watch me make it, like it's truly just like me just being very silly in front of my computer, and that's fine. Like I think that I don't care if people think that. Actually, it's very funny. One of the Cheeseburger Picnic songs on SoundCloud for whatever reason, got like tagged or like roped in with like maybe some kind of like EDM or pop music playlist. And not only does it have like over 2,000 plays or something, but like every so often I'll get a comment from just some rando saying like, "This sucks, like this is gay, like what the fuck is this bullshit?" Like, it's like, I'm just wondering how you people are getting here. Like,
Yeah.
like I look at their profiles and like all the music they like are just like, you know, chiptune or like you know, SoundCloud rap or, you know, like EDM. Like, how did the algorithm play into this? But yeah, I mean, I think in a way I don't really take. I mean, I'm curious about the music I make, but maybe in a more public space, I perhaps don't come off quite as being serious about it in a way that kind of like sort of protects me from criticism a little bit. I don't know. It might be a bit of a defense mechanism, but like I definitely tend to be more on the flippant side when I debut things, unless it's like super fucking important to me. Like, I think even though I posted so little about it, like I really did care a lot about that Blue Noise album, and I did want people to hear it, but I'm just not very good at promoting myself, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's a great album. Yeah, I think a lot of people enjoyed it as well. But yeah, I understand. I think where you're coming from when you say it's like a defense mechanism, because yeah, I mean, no matter what you put out there, there's always going to be some strange reaction to it, even if it's mostly positive. At times it's just that I don't know. That's the way you can prepare yourself for that, is to just be ready to hear that. I mean, I don't even know. Someone was sending me messages on Instagram earlier saying that someone in a forum that I'm not even familiar with was saying something about me, like being like a teenager. Like, they thought that I was a teenager because I said something about some band from like the 90s. Like, like what? Like, and it's just, and I'm like, where? I mean, I don't know, but that's something else. It's just, it's funny. It's like, there's there's one aspect where people assume that I'm older than I am, and then there's another that think I'm teenagers, and like, no, I don't know.
That's why.
I was contemporaries with these people, but at any rate, um, what is next, as far as what you're doing musically at the moment?
So, I've got 2 albums that are pretty much done except for vocals.
Uh-oh.
I'm just waiting on people to finish it. Like,
I'm one of them, or maybe not one of the 2 you're mentioning, but yeah, and yeah, I get a little bit frustrated when people leave me hanging as long as I've left you hanging. So I do want to publicly apologize for that. I do have the lyrics written, and I've got the songs in the DAW, and I even, it's have you ever gone through something, gone through a project like pretty much completely, and then at some point later you just thought, wow, I really want to rethink this whole thing?
yeah, a little bit.
And it's like, I think that's why, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but I think that's why I move through things so quickly, is because I hate it if I get to that point and I start rethinking it. Like,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
then
I just know, like,
I'm not
I want to
doing
use that
it.
energy and just do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like, if I don't do this, how can I keep going? How can I do the next thing? And, but, you know, I get, especially when it's like a heady concept like this this thing that I'm doing with Maya right now is called Theandor, and it's basically a concept album. And so, you know, I I feel really strongly about the subject and the concept, and but then, you know, you just sometimes get to that point where you're like, is this, will other people take something away from this? Like, or
Yeah.
am I keeping my secrets, like, you know, too secret, I guess, as it were. But what are the other projects? What kind of stuff is it that we can expect?
Well, one of them is a full-length Zone record, and Zone was a project that I did that was kind of like a sound a little like ceremony, gag, glue, kind of that realm of hardcore.
Okay, did you tour on
And
that before?
no, we played a
Oh,
couple shows, so
oh, okay. I'm not sure which band I'm thinking of then that you had done a tour on. But
the only bands I've really toured with are Bonzo and Monster Bad.
oh, okay, okay,
Yeah, and actually there is a new Serpent Column album coming out in 6 days.
awesome.
That's happening real soon. That record, I don't want to talk it up too much, but it goes pretty fucking hard. Like
Awesome.
it's very abrasive, very hard hitting. There's some breakdowns, which I know people might be a certain group of internet nerds might be very
They're
confused
ready.
about, but
They're ready for
I
it.
don't really like. I think this record is, at the very least, going to turn some heads.
Well, I really enjoyed the last one, so I'm looking forward to it. And by the time this goes up, it will be able, people will be able to listen to it. So, where's that
Oh,
gonna?
yeah.
What's the URL for that?
And that's going to be on serpentcolumn.bandcamp.com,
Awesome.
I think. And there is already a music. There's a single out already on, I think, maybe our label's website. I don't remember, but and there's also a music video that our label released as well for another one of the songs.
And that was my conversation with Maya Chun. What an incredible engineer and musician. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, Maya. Until next time, take care and do good things.